Folklore Unlocked. I'm Austin, and like usual, I'm joined by Ethan.
Hello again, everyone.
And this week we are finishing up our Legend of King Arthur series with part two, The Knights of the Round Table. And if you missed last week's episode, we went more so over King Arthur himself, and then touched on the Knights of the Round Table to our legendary knights of King Arthur, dedicated to kind of ensuring peace and everything in Arthur's kingdom, and it and the size of the round table ranges from as low as a dozen to as many as potentially over 1,600. And one of the more famous ones that doesn't necessarily have a clear backstory is Mordred, who is typically either Arthur's traitorous nephew or Arthur's villainous bastard son. And he's sometimes known as the traitorous knight since he typically does betray Arthur in most of the canonical Arthurian legends. And he dies at Camelon in a duel against Arthur, but not before mortally wounding Arthur. And I'm just learning this for the first time. Apparently, he had two sons. They are unnamed in Arthurian legend.
I did my best to try to find names, but I could not find anywhere they had any names for them. So they're just two unnamed sons. Okay, and then one of the more known, I guess, of the Knights of the Round Table is Lancelot, where I feel like most people do know him. And he is King Arthur's closest companion and also one of the greatest knights of the Round Table. And he is famed as nearly unrivaled in swordsmanship and jousting. And if you remember on the last episode, we were talking about one of the knights possibly killing a dragon or whatever. This would have been Lancelot. I knew I had a picture here, and that's him like killing a dragon or whatnot. The picture here in the bottom corner. And in some literature, he was raised in the fairy realm by the Lady of the Lake, and he's also Lord of the Castle Joyous Guard and the personal champion of Arthur's wife, Guinevere. But he ended up having an affair with Guinevere, which ended up causing the Civil War, which ended in the downfall of King Arthur. And he is the father of another Round Table member, Galahad.
And Lancelot's full name is Lancelot du Lac, which means of the lake in French.
Okay, that makes sense with the being kind of raised by the Lady of the Lake. Huh. And then one of the most well known, I guess, like magicians or wizards or whatever you want to call them, magical figures, is Merlin. And he is a mythical figure prominent in like all King Arthur legends like that, and is best known as a magician. He was born of a mortal woman and an incubus, which an incubus is just the male form of a succubus, for anyone that doesn't know any of that. And that is how he inherits his supernatural powers through his incubus blood, I guess, and abilities. And the abilities being prophecy and shapeshifting, which his prophecies did lead up to Arthur becoming king and whatnot. So I mean, they're pretty good prophecies, I guess. And his various ends, or like possibly the way he dies or how his story ends, is either being bewitched and forever sealed up into either a cave or a tree, or he was killed by a lady of the lake after falling in love with her, and then also he could have just retirement and died of old age. So I mean, either sealed up, killed by a lady of the lake, or retirement. So I mean, there's a lot of stuff that could happen between there.
Well, I've also saw like in some versions of the legend that Lancelot remain like doesn't have the affair with Guinevere and Merlin being like the guy that starts the Civil War.
Okay, okay. I had never heard of that one. Now, did Merlin end up having the affair with Guinevere, or is it just the Civil War happens?
Well, like doesn't have an affair with Guinevere, but he does stuff like keeping prophecies from Arthur that leads to a civil war, and Merlin is wanting to be like the new leader of Camelot.
Okay, okay. I think out of all the ends, I like the one of being sealed up into the cave or tree. For some reason, I saw a picture of like him being trapped inside a tree, and for some reason, I liked that one the better. Which one do you think would be the better end for him?
Uh, if if I were Merlin, I would want the peaceful retirement and death.
Well, I'm not meaning like if you're a Merlin, okay? Like for how Merlin was through the stories and stuff like that, what type of end do you think befalls him? Like, what do you think would be the most like? I guess since most stories are like romance kind of things, or like kind of like I don't know. What do you think would be the best? Still retirement and death, or
Yeah,
okay,
if like in most versions he's the good guy and everything, but like in the versions I'm thinking of where Lancelot remains by Arthur's side and like still being like a good guy and Merlin being the bad guy, being sealed up in a cave or tree or
yeah,
killed by the Lady of the Lake.
yeah, yeah. So either if Merlin was in a bad thing, the not definitely not retirement, but good retirement. I can agree with
Yeah.
that. And then one of the like realms that we wanted to talk about is Avalon, because this is something that's mentioned through Arthurian legend, and it's supposed to be a mythical island that is there. And there's a few different places that we'll talk about that could be Avalon in the stories. But here's the description of it. It's an isle of this is how it's described, I guess. An isle of fruit trees where it produces all things of itself, and then also people apparently live there for over hundreds of years. And I think it also said something about like the fields plowing themselves and stuff like that. Just a very fruit, a very good place. It's also been identified as the former island of Glaston Turby. No, oh my gosh, Glaston Turby.
Glastonbury.
Yes, there we go. Which is the site where St. Michael's Tower is located in English country of Somerset. Somerset. Okay. There's also a couple other places that it could be. One of them is in Italy. It's Etna Peak, and another one's in the Welsh country of Gwynedd is the Bardsey Islands. These are all certain places that they said that could be the location. Uh, Avalon is also the place where King Arthur's sword Excalibur was forged by the Lady of the Lake, and also where Arthur was taken to recover when he was gravely wounded at the battle against Mordred. So there's also stories that, like, or prophecies, I guess, that someday Arthur would return from Avalon to retake the kingdom, which never happened. So
Yet.
yet, I guess,
It
yet.
hasn't happened yet, if the prophecies are to be believed.
And I mean, it did say that people could live there for hundreds of years. It doesn't really say how many hundreds, I guess. So I mean, possibly.
Who's to say it's not thousands?
I guess you're right. I guess you're right.
I mean, it doesn't give us an exact timeline for how long people can live there. So
Hey, these last few years have been really weird. If King Arthur just all of a sudden showed up, I think that would be one of the better outcomes.
it all started with that damn gorilla.
Don't blame the gorilla. Don't blame the gorilla. It was not
I'm
his fault.
not bl- I'm not blaming Harambe. I'm blaming the guy that killed him.
And then Lady of the Lake, which is talked about quite a bit throughout the Legends of King Arthur. Uh, it is a name or title used by several different fairies or fairy-like human enchantresses. Even at one point, Morgan Le Fay, is said to be a Lady of the Lake. So I mean, there's many different people that take the Lady of the Lake thing. So just because we say Lady of the Lake, actually, this picture here is the one where Merlin gets entrapped in the tree. This is the one I chose. But yeah, so the Lady of the Lake that trapped Merlin in a possible world is not particularly the same one that could have given Arthur Excalibur. So, and the best known as the character Nemu, that's like the name that's sometimes given in some of the stories. And again, some of the important roles that are given to the Lady of the Lake is providing Arthur with his sword Excalibur, eliminating Merlin through various different ways, possibly, raising Lancelot after the death of his father, which he also, the Lady Lake also was supposed to have later cured Lancelot's madness, and also help taking the dying King Arthur to Avalon to hopefully come back in hundreds of years or thousands.
Generally, generally a good, I guess, person, fairy. I don't know.
Exactly.
Kind of unclear. Just a good woman being.
Hmm. As long as you're not Merlin in some stories.
Yes, but to her defense, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
And now on to the Holy Grail, which we'll probably cover in a deeper sense later on, but since it's kind of got its own folklore surrounding it, but it's a copper dish with miraculous powers, including healing and providing eternal youth. And it's thought to be the chalice Jesus drank from at the Last Supper and used to catch his blood at the crucifixion. And in our Arthurian legend, it's guarded in the Fisher King and located in the Hidden Grail Castle. And it is said to have been found by Galahad, Percival, and Bors. And apparently 150 knights set out to find the Grail, which I think is kind of underkill, to
Yeah,
be honest.
especially if they had 1,600 knights in the round table at the higher number. Just sending 150 seems lowballing.
Yeah, considering how important this item would be just for like historical matters, like forget religious context, but like historical, purely historical, it would be like one of the greatest, if not the greatest find of all time.
Oh, and don't
And
forget the
then,
powers, like the healing powers there. In Eternal Youth.
ex- yeah, I was gonna say throw in the religious context and all these powers and stuff. Hands down would be the greatest find of all time. And speaking of the Fisher King who apparently guarded the Holy Grail, it, he was both the protector and physical embodiment of his lands. but wound renders him impotent and his kingdom barren. And the Fisher King's wound was said to have been given to him by Sir Balin using the spear of Longinus, which is the lance that pierced Jesus' side to ensure, you know, Jesus was unalive for YouTube matters, aka dead. And sometimes he's depicted as spending his time fishing while he awaits a chosen one who can heal him. And healing of the wounds always depends upon the completion of a hero knight's task. So it seems like he meant well, but was kind of not a very good king at the same time.
Now, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure the Fisher King is actually the grandfather of Galahad, if I remember correctly when I was looking stuff up. Because there was some like weird stuff happening with Merlin like enchanting Lancelot to sleep with the Fisher King's daughter, and that's how Galahad was made. So I mean, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. So I mean, it kind of fits that Galahad was one of the ones that went there to get the Holy Grail.
Yeah, let's just admit that Arthurian legend is just weird at
Very much.
points. Now for some Arthurian legend and pop culture. And I'll start with something I just remembered while doing this, but remember the magical treehouse books?
Yes,
Well,
I.
Merlin and Morgan Le Fay have characters based off them and using the same names in those books. Can't believe I just remembered that.
I had forgotten that because what wasn't the reason why the books had an M on them was because they were from Merlin.
And it was originally Morgan Le Fay and then Merlin, or
Okay.
vice versa.
Either way, M.
Yeah, and then the Fisher King parts one and two, which part one was the season one finale of Criminal Minds, and part two was the season two premiere of Criminal Minds. Very good show too. So,
Oh yeah, it was pretty good.
and then there's were several Looney Tune shorts, including the Nightmare Hare and Nighty Night Bugs, both starring Bugs Bunny, that kind of parodies the Arthurian legend. Shrek the Third also parodies Arthurian legend. And Scooby Doo, the Soar and the Scoob, a directed DVD Scooby Doo movie, takes inspiration from Arthurian legend. And Monty Python and the Holy Grail parodies the legend of King Arthur's quest up for the Holy Grail in excellent fashion,
Oh
I
yeah.
might add.
Whenever I sit here and look at the pop culture slide, whenever you added this, and I look down there, I'm sitting here, I'm like, he hasn't added Monty Python to the Holy Grail. I have to add it. Which,
Well, I kind of forgot about Monty Python being based off of King Arthur.
oh, whenever I was making up these slides, the Holy Grail, whenever I typed in the Holy Grail, Monty Python was one of the first like search results. So I'm like, okay, it's in my mind like pretty new.
Well, I can't believe I forgot the magical treehouse until now.
Well, it's been a while since I've read those books. It's been grade
Yeah,
school, so
yeah, you're looking at, oh God,
don't
hate,
age us.
hate, it's been a long time.
It's been a little while. Good books though, very good books.
But our, our thoughts are maybe most of the people did exist, as most, at least my thoughts are, is either they did exist and then their legends just kind of got out of hand, or they're based off of multiple people who just throughout time got combined into one of several people, like King Arthur, Merlin, Mordred, and all of them. But your thoughts?
I'm mine hasn't really changed since the last video. Mine is that I don't know for sure if they have as much historical like legend, like if they actually existed. I just want them to exist. I'm more like I love the stories. I don't care about like anything that happened historically with them. Or well, I do care, but I if it didn't actually happen, it's like, oh well, they're still great stories. So I mean, I still love it either way.
Yeah, yeah, probably not historical people, but like I said, Holy Grail probably does exist, but may or may not have the powers. And like I said, we'll probably delve deeper into that further on. Avalon probably exists as well, but probably not like it not like it exists as it does in the legends.
Yeah, I was about to
Fisher
say.
King, the Fisher King kind of it's like the pinnacle of, yeah, probably it's based off of a real person, but since he isn't given a name, it's hard to say who he's based off because, you know, kings are kind of known for not being good people or lazy. So,
Not every single king. No,
well, not every single king,
a majority. I'll agree with you there.
but like out of everybody to exist, I think the Fisher King is probably the most likely to exist.
I think I like the idea that like he's called the Fisher King and he fishes on the dock a lot. That's kind of one of my things. I'm like whenever I came across his Wikipedia page and it's just like, oh, he's mentioned as a Fisher King because he's always fishing a lot, and I'm like, that's fair. That's fair.
Fair point.
Uh huh.
And I think that's all for Arthurian Legend. Anything you'd like to add?
No, just thanks for watching, everyone.
Well, next week we're going back to Germany for Krampus,
Oh my.
who I'm going to describe now as Santa's evil twin brother demon thing.
Have you watched the Krampus movie?
No, but I'm planning on doing so within the next week.
Okay, I was gonna say go watch the Krampus movie before the next episode. It's I thought it was pretty good.
But thanks for watching if you're on YouTube. Thanks for listening if you're on Spotify. Drop us a like, comment, and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and drop us a follow if you're on Spotify. And we'll see you next week.
Yep. Bye, everyone.